Mr. Chairman, anytime.
Okay. Thank you and good morning and welcome to the September 29th meeting of the Fitchburg Bicycle Committee. As we noted a few minutes ago, we've got a very full agenda today, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And the first item of business is to consider approval of the draft minutes from our June 30th meeting. Thank you, Phil. Is there any feedback or comments about the draft minutes from June 30th? Okay, hearing none, I will move approval if there's no further discussion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. Let's keep moving forward. Our next item on the agenda, item number 3, is public appearances for non-agenda items. I'm going to turn this over to Phil because I forgot to introduce our two guests today, and I apologize. We have Dorothy Krause, Alder from Fitchburg, and Kim Lobdell from K&L Engineering joining us to have a little bit of a discussion around a very important issue getting ready to happen on the bike trail around Sain Road. So I'm going to turn it over to you folks. All yours, Phil.
I think I'd hand this right over to Dorothy.
Okay. Hi, and thanks. It came to my attention just as of the council meeting last Tuesday that the Sain Mccoy area is going to be reconstructed. That includes the parking lot of the bike crossing. I am on the area MPO, and we have talked in the past about that crossing. I've been on since about the time that Cherry Maples ended up being killed at that intersection on her bike. Looking at the map, and this is in the bike committee's packet, I've got, I would like to reconfigure the Cap City Trail there to touch the north edge of that parking lot instead of the south edge of it. Move it further to the north, further away from that complex intersection, and at the end of the curve rather than in the middle of the curve. I think there's a lot of bikers that have a lot of concern about that crossing. We have had a death, as I noted. If this entire roadway is to be reconstructed soon, that would be the time to talk about realigning that crossing. We would clearly have to involve the county. Hopefully the county would fund both the study that would need to be added to the contract and the majority of the reconstruction as a result of that. One question that I'll have for Kim when she speaks is whether that needs to happen in this year's budget yet for the county or the city, or whether it's for next year's budget. And that's all that I'll say for now. Thanks.
Okay, I'll just add a few comments. I'm Kim Lobdell. I'm a Fitchburg resident, but I'm also the president of KL Engineering, and we had been selected, KL Engineering has been selected by the city of Fitchburg through a qualifications-based selection process to do the redesign of Sain Road from just south of Lacey to all the way up to Mccoy. And a lot of it has to do, well, some of it has to do with that bike path and the location, but there's a lot of storm water and a lot of drainage. And I know Dorothy had sent me a map of a potential realignment, and I had our designers look at it. And it would have to be modified slightly. I think I told you that, Dorothy, because we are doing wetland delineations and we have to do an environmental document process. But it definitely is doable to be able to change that crossing so that it is more visible in conjunction with that. In terms of timing on the contract, our contract has not been approved yet, so we haven't actually started doing any work. It's going through the process at the city of Fitchburg right now. I do know that what you sent that on to Bill Schaefer, and he forwarded it on to Chris James, and Chris's initial reaction was that he doesn't, there have been no other crashes noted at that area. So, he doesn't really have it on their radar screen at this time. So we'd have to do some work with Chris and background with the Dane County Parks in order to try to get some information on that. But in terms of timing wise, this project is not scheduled for reconstruction, I believe, until 2022. We would be doing most of the design in 2021. We would like to go out and get all of our survey work done now and all of our wetland delineation before this fall, because that would, if we don't, we'll get things pushed back very bad, we'll push back further. But in terms of being able to look at the crossing of this and then the trailhead design, putting in next year's budget wouldn't be approved until November of 2021. Is that correct?
Next year's budget will be in November this year.
Okay, yeah, okay. So next year's budget is fine. I was thinking you were going 1 year past that. No, yeah, next year's budget is way fine for any kind of modifications that you might want to make.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, can I ask another question? You is again looking at this for the first time this morning. I ride quite a bit out of Swan Creek north to the trail, and you can see it right along the middle of the computer screen here. That road is a bumpy mess. Is that trail in any part of your work right there where the all the way down? Is that's really bad.
The condition of it? The condition of the trail in that?
The condition of it, it's terrible.
Okay.
And I know it's not an official Dane County trail. It's more of what I would call a Fitchburg connector. So if we're going to look at this, does it make sense to better connect our trails throughout our city? A lot of people ride, walk, and run along that trail.
Okay.
So again, I don't mean to raise a red herring to what Dorothy's brought up, but I'm just thinking if we're going to look at this, let's look at the whole thing.
Okay. I do not believe that in our contract right now, the city of Fitchburg had anticipated redoing anything with that portion of the trail because it probably would not have to be realigned. I know we are we're going to be looking at a potential roundabout at Sain and Mccoy up there. So depending on how that fits in and lays in, but I can make a note of that, Mark, or to have our engineers look at the condition of that, and then we can discuss it with Bill Mckee.
Yeah, just have them get on the trail right there where it intersects Sain and walk north up to that big farmhouse that's still there.
Yep. Okay, so basically
Thank you.
from Sain.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
Okay.
I'd like to say something about that. The people who live in the big farmhouse are good friends of mine, and the amount of traffic that goes through there is significant. And yes, I agree that the condition of the trail is poor. I really like the idea of moving the trail to the other side of the parking lot, because I think any opportunity that we have to make a situation safer, I don't know what the cost is or anything like that, but I think we should do whatever we can to look at that. Even though there has only been one fatality recently there, I still think that we shouldn't be waiting for fatalities before we make changes. And so I would like to see that moved if possible, particularly if we're considering putting a roundabout in that intersection. The best option to get bikers away from that roundabout would be a desirable thing to consider.
Angie, are you putting that in form of a motion?
Yes, I am.
Technically, I don't think you can if it's not an agenda item, right?
I know. We got to figure that out. I'll look
Okay.
to the city people online here.
So you would like to move, the plan is to move, what you would like is the connection which is right there by Sain to the trailhead to the other side of the lot, correct?
Well, I read Dorothy's information last night and appreciated getting to look at that ahead of time. So I personally think that it would be a safer intersection for not just bikers if it was moved more towards the other side of that parking lot.
Okay, so we're talking about the connection between the crossing between the Capital City Trail and then the other, whatever at Sain there and that, yeah.
Kim, who has the mouse? Is that you, Kim?
Oh, not me.
Oh,
Phil.
who had the mouse?
No,
Phil?
that's me.
Phil?
That's me.
If you can bring the mouse back down, go to the left where the C is on Cap City Trail, right there.
So,
I think what Dorothy's talking
so
about is
essentially coming
connected.
from here north
There you go.
of this lot. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
I concur with Dorothy and Angie. If we can do this, it certainly makes sense. Because again, I ride this trail at least once, twice a week.
Okay.
And I've learned to stop. But you can't, when you're coming north on Mccoy, you can't see around that corner. Or coming south, sorry. You can't see around that corner.
And there's
And
a lot.
another question I raise is what's the speed limit on Sain Road right there? From a safety standpoint.
40, I think.
35.
35, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's 35.
Okay.
But you know, I'm also looking at the other multiple uses of that trail. There's a lot of rollerbladers, there's a lot of roller skiers, there's a lot, I mean, walkers for the most part will stop, but there's a lot of people that if they had better visibility and it was further away from that somewhat busy intersection, it would be a very good thing to look at.
Well, and one thing that would have to be considered is as you start going north on Sain there are some fairly extensive wetlands. So rerouting that, we'd have to make sure that there aren't any wetlands.
That might be why it is where it is. It's actually better than it used to be.
Okay.
And we did look at that, and we have a sub-consultant that is officially gonna go out and delineate all the wetlands as soon as we can contract in the city, which we need to be doing shortly because this is the time of the year. We can't wait till November when everything is dead. Then they can't do their job. So we do have a sub-consultant ready to go with that wetland delineation. And then that would give us a much clearer picture as to what the options would be.
And if we end up talking wetlands, we could talk about boardwalk also.
True.
County seems to be getting pretty good at doing boardwalks.
Yeah, we're doing the whole lower Yahara Trail portion right now, and we're doing Garber Path with City Madison, that is portion of the boardwalk.
Andy Potts, what do you think about this, what we're discussing?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to move it. I was actually just out there this morning to kind of get a better look at it. I think it makes sense to move it. I guess my concern when I was out there was the wetlands, but I think we can work around that. The other concern I would have would be the side path that's coming up Sain.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that whatever's rebuilt, that it's clear that the side path needs to continue up and cross at Sain. Otherwise, my concern would be if you were to leave the pavement in along, it is essentially if you were to leave any remnant of the current crossing there, the people would still just short circuit it if they're coming off that side path.
Oh, I see what you're
So
saying.
could you, move your area so I know exactly where you're talking about, please?
Yep, right, just a little bit north. My concern is if you don't
Right there.
remove all the remnants of the old trail, people coming on that side path are still going to short circuit it, even if you move the entire path north.
And that's what they did when they redid this trail clear over towards the school a couple of years ago after it first came in, and they were eventually blocked it off and they removed part of it. So yeah, that's a good point, Kim, as you look at this or think about that.
So
Okay.
Andy, do you mean, I'm pulling up the Google
There you
Maps
go.
Street View here. So here's the lot right now. The trail's coming along the south side of it here's the McCoy Sain intersection. Do you mean people coming north along this trail?
Yeah, so I'm
Just cut
concerned.
across even if you move
Yeah,
this.
I'm concerned if you
north?
don't take, if when you move the entire path to the north,
Okay.
cross Sain, if you don't take that remnant pavement
A little
out,
bit.
then they're just gonna still cross there because they're not going to go the half block further north.
Sure.
Well, and there is going to be something else we have to take into account. You're going to have them, if they're coming down that trail, they're going to have to cross the parking lot. See?
Right.
So we got to take that into account.
Oh, right. That if the trail's moved up north and they're coming across this
Yeah.
lot.
Right.
as Andy said, you got to stop them from doing that.
So it's possible, I don't know if it's depending on geographic out there, to move that crossing a little bit further and then run something along the south side, but nobody's gonna do that because they're gonna take the shortest distance.
Correct.
Yeah, that's my concern, is if you basically leave, just stop, Phil, or go back a little bit. Back to the right, look east. My concern is if you leave that path right there, then people are just they'll pop onto Sain and cross it, basically an unmarked spot.
Mhm.
You know, I've been in Fitchburg for a while now, and this intersection is actually improved upon what it used to be back years ago. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm just being critical of things, but I think that this would be an even bigger improvement if we could figure out a way to do it with the wetlands and that kind of thing. There's a lot more bikers out there, as we know, and the trails are pretty popular for people who are not comfortable riding on roads.
So this is given. I'm trying to run the meeting and give a keep to our agenda. This is a very important item. I think we're all in concurrence that it makes sense. So I'm asking as the chair and not a city person here, where does this go? Where do we take this next as a committee?
I think you need to go to Dane County
Okay.
to get them on board with it, in order to get funding for, even maybe be able to look at alternatives and come up with different alignments, which then would be presented back to you. Even just for the study portion of it as to where it could possibly go. And then, you could do a subsequent phase to try to get money for the actual funding of the construction.
Okay.
I'll look into, Mark, I'm not sure, since the next meeting that we have is either November or December. I think the first Tuesday in December, that would be the next time we could put it onto a bike committee agenda, and actually have any kind of committee action on it. But I'll check into if there's any options for the committee to address it sooner
I think we should. I think Dorothy mentioned the timing of the budgets now, and I think it's important before they get too far along in their planning, and or Kim's folks go too far down the line. So I mean, again, this is what our bike committee exists to do, is look at safety and help. And I think we need to. I'm not so much worried about the next meeting as I am. Let's get it to the right people now. I mean, do those of you on the committee concur?
absolutely.
I'm seeing head nods. I'm not taking a formal vote.
So one thing that probably should be done, I'm on the county board also. I can probably co-sponsor a budget amendment with Ann DeGarmo, who would be the county board supervisor for the area that this is in. If Mark or Phil wants to work with the two of us to put together an amendment for the county board budget, that would probably be the most effective thing to do at this point.
I'm happy to do that, Dorothy, and I was going to bring up that you were on the county board, as which might be able to help with this. I have gotten to know Alex DeSchmidt, I think is his name. He seems to be coordinating the trail construction and the trail communication, and I think we can go to him too, Phil. So let's go offline and
I'd be happy to help with that too.
Forward. Yeah.
But yeah, it would be, I think you're right, Mark. We got a busy meeting and be good to start getting into the agenda.
Okay, so let's go back. Dorothy, was there anything else real quickly in your email? I only got through the trail part. You wanted it named in honor of this individual. Was that the second part?
There was some enthusiasm at MPO for having the trailhead dedicated to Sherry Maples, again, and people can look at her history in the community.
Yeah.
But she's a notable person, and she died as the result of an accident at the intersection.
At the intersection, yeah, right. So with that, do you want some consensus from us as a group, or are you going to take that through Dane County? Or is that a Fitchburg issue? I'm asking the question.
No, it needs to go through Dane County to add funding to the contract for the design work, and then to add skin in the game to get the work done once the contract is in motion.
Okay.
I would think that's something that if they are going to work on that reroute, then that's something we could put onto a future agenda item. You know, a resolution requesting renaming, specific naming of the intersection.
I would concur, and in the, again, the interest of trying to move through this busy agenda, is there anything else on this topic at this point in time? It sounds like initially Phil and I are going to follow up. Dorothy and I didn't get the other gentleman's name down, but could possibly co-sponsor this. And then Kim will be waiting on some directions back from Dane County. Is that all kind of where we are?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for bringing up this very important item, Dorothy. Kim, thank you for joining us so early in the morning. Stay busy, and we will proceed to our next item, which is to review our agenda. Okay, we've got on the agenda for today, we've got, there it is, Phil, thank you. We've got projects about the bike network, a resolution that we want to fund the CTM and Mccoy traffic signals. We're going to talk about some bicycling events, and again, we're way off track. The North Factory Pump, our bike-friendly goal group that's working the bicycle registration ordinance, and then Phil's got a report at the end. So with this in mind, I'm going to move right into an update on projects. And if we need to run till like maybe 9:15, can you folks hang till then? I see a nod from Angie.
Andy, you said you have to leave right at 9, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ellie, are you okay?
Yeah, I can stay till 9:15.
Okay, and I also see Joe's on here, but Joe's muted. So why don't we go ahead and get going? Joe, if you could stay, we'd love to have you stay too. So let's get going, and we got a lot to do today. All yours, Phil.
Yep. Do we? I don't know. Is Bill at City Hall in the council
Bill's
chambers?
not on here.
No, sir, he's not.
Okay. All right. I can do a quick update on the bike network projects. I spoke with Bill Balke last week. There's some continuations in here from the second quarter meeting, a couple of new items. So with the Mckee Road resurfacing and Badger State Trail rework, that the Mckee Road work continues, but the reroute that had been done for Badger State Trail kind of through the Sub-Zero roadway that has been that was shifted as the south part of or I guess the multi-use trail along the south side of Mckee Road was ready, and so bikes and pedestrians have been rerouted up Badger State Trail to Mckee and then going alongside this multi-use path. But the Badger State Trail bridge across Mckee Road still was not completed, so we had people routing over to Military Ridge Trail. This bridge across Mckee on the BST is going to be opened this week. Today's Tuesday, is that right?
Yep.
So tomorrow, this bridge will officially be opened. And there will be a ribbon cutting event, and the bikes and pedestrians will be able to start using this tomorrow. So it'll be nice to get the Badger State Trail back, especially as we've lost some of the Cap City Trail here as planned for the county resurfacing of the Cap City Trail. Phase 3 continues. And by November 1st, this section should be completed. That's, I believe the latest I heard from Alex was that they didn't think it would take that long, but that technically the contract stipulates this will be completed by November 1. So then the Cap City Trail from Seminole to the roundabout will be opened again. Let's see, I'm going to pull up something I had in here because I have a couple of notes to myself that I want to make sure I don't forget about as I'm talking through these. And if they don't open, here we go. Yeah, it looks like nothing else on that. The next one is, we talked about this at the last meeting as well, the the Madison Metro Sewerage District is working on a major interceptor improvement, and that does conflict with some sections of the bike trail. So there are going to be parts of the Cannonball Trail and the Military Ridge that are going to be closed down over the next 12 months as they work on replacing that major interceptor. At this point, they don't have phasing worked out yet. We know it's going to be sometime starting this winter and continuing into next winter. Parts of the trail will be closed down as they work on those, and then for some period, the bike roundabout will be closed as well. At this point, we're still waiting for all of the details to be figured out, and once that's determined, then I'll get that out to the committee, and we'll be able to start talking about that and see if what kind of communications we need to have with MMSD on that. And then the last one is just projects for 2021, and most of these we talked about again at the second quarter meeting. Some Lacey Road rework that we're going to add on-street bike lanes. This one I didn't update appropriately because we have gotten our contractor for the Cyan Road work that we just discussed. Fish hatchery continues. That'll be completed next year with the multi-use path along the west side of the road. This looks like the same thing that I've got above. This is probably the most notable item here just because we're speaking about it next as that resolution R15420. The intersection of Lacey Road and County, nope, that's incorrect. That's this one down here is the intersection of Mccoy and County Highway MM is going to be improved with a signal, turn lane relocation, relocating the Cap City Trail. This we'll touch on in just a moment. Right here where Terravesa, where County Highway MM intersects with Lacey Road, that's right by the new Terravesa development. That signal has been installed and I believe should now be operational. And then Bill said Military Ridge Trail, that bridge over Fitchburg Road, I guess the surface is has been a little iffy for a while. So that bridge is going to be resurfaced, and while that's being worked on, cyclists will be just rerouted down a little side ramp and then back up around the bridge. Should begin this fall. He wasn't sure on the exact date, but there will be a little bit of a reroute on the Military Ridge Trail at some point in the next month or two. Yeah, so that's all of the public works projects that are impacting the bike network. If anybody has any questions on that, otherwise we can probably move on to the next item.
I do, or I guess I have a suggestion or a comment. I'm looking at what we're talking about Cyan, and Cyan is, I understand that there's right-of-way obstacles from what I'm reading, and I understand that you can't take property for bike lanes, but I would like to encourage people to think about paved shoulders as more than a bike issue, as a multi-use issue, as the big trucks that come flying through here, or, so I'm off of Cyan on the far end down near Byrne. And I would like to see paved shoulders on that road, even if it's not specifically for biking. I feel like it's better for the city of Fitchburg to have a decent sized road, because then the edges of the road aren't chewed up by the big trucks going through. So I feel like wider roads that, or at least roads with paved shoulders, help bikers, help walkers, help drivers. I feel like it helps the city of Fitchburg when they don't have to rebuild their roads when the bigger trucks break up the edges of them along the gravel. I think it's crazy that we're looking at redoing a main road, because I consider Cyan a main road, without putting at least paved shoulders, if not the bike lanes that I understand are the obstacle. So to me, it's a lot more than just a bike thing. It's an entire city usage. And I look at Cyan, and the intersection of Cyan and Irish Lane is a problem. I don't know how many accidents there are there on even minor accidents, but I think it's an issue. And I really think that we could use some, at least paved shoulders, if nothing else, when we're looking at doing anything on Cyan.
So the budget for this road is, I assume, going in this year's budget. Is that correct? The one that's gonna get approved? It's already been approved.
That should be going, I think it needs to be approved yet, because that should be happening next year.
Okay. So since Bill Balke has changed, and is Bill on the phone? I know Bill's got
he's not.
a promotion, so, I mean, do we need to take this back to him, or where do we take Angie's comment back to?
I can speak with Bill about whether there are other justifications for widening that road beyond just bike infrastructure. That would make it a little bit easier to tackle that logistically.
I think we have to look at that. I think this is not a biking issue per se. It's a everybody user issue. And, you know, when we put little paved shoulders in sections and then not in other sections, and we cut people in and out of traffic, we are creating unpredictable situations that cause accidents. And, you know, I just feel like it needs to be looked at on all of our bigger roads.
Hey all, this is Joe. Sorry, I'm getting my daughter ready, but Phil, when you look into this with Bill, can you look at what the cost differences will be? Because I mean, if this truly is a safety issue, maybe I need to talk to Alder Udell or Alder Clowder and seeing if one of them are willing to sponsor an amendment, because our budget process is it's in process right now. So alders have until the 15th to put in a budget amendment. So again, I want to like understand the full picture, and maybe we need to bring this to Randy or Tom, because I know both of them have spoken about being concerned about safety in other intersections. So if this is a safety issue for this one, then maybe we need to rethink how we're doing it.
I think the way the hill comes up by the farm and where it comes down, I just think we have to consider paved shoulders. And you know, yesterday I'm riding down Wayland, which I know is another issue, but I rode down Wayland and I had 7 large trucks pass me. They're always considerate. They always move over to the other side if they can, or they wait, but they barely fit on the road. And so their right wheels are chewing up the sides of the road, any part of the road that doesn't have a paved shoulder. So if we're looking at longevity of road quality, that alone should be something we should consider a paved shoulder for.
Like a long-term savings issue.
Angie, do you live near there?
Yeah, I live on Old Indian Trail right off of Sain.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I would definitely say that you should bring this to the attention of both alders, because they sort of like work on these kinds of issues, and I know they're probably thinking about what kind of budget amendments they're going to put in this year. They're probably thinking about it right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think again, it's important to get this done now. So between Phil and Angie, you can get to the alder and let's avoid what happened regarding Wayland, where we got it half done.
Yeah, let's avoid it.
And not all the way done. And before we get into it, because I ride this road periodically, I avoid this road for the reason Angie mentioned. It is narrow. There's those hills, and you got a lot of trucks on it. But it's a north-south commuter type, not a commuter, but a north-south road to get back and forth.
There's a lot of people that use it, but you know, we don't want to pull another Wayland where I use my rear view mirror, make sure that there's no trucks coming or cars coming. And if I'm going to have to cut in at the point where I'm forced to cut in, if not, I cut in early. That's why I got on this committee, was to hopefully help people realize where we need help with our roads.
Let's get it to Alder Clowder and Phil, if you can get the people in the city. And then let's keep moving on. Good point, Angie. I think I concur with what you're saying. Let's do it right. So
CC Randy on it, and feel free to CC me as well.
All right. Thanks Angie.
Joe. Thanks, Angie. Okay, next one, Phil.
Okay, so the next item is Resolution R17520, resolution approving a state municipal agreement to fund the County Highway MM and Mccoy traffic signals and intersection improvements. And we've got two comments on this before we get into committee discussion. I'll go ahead and start with an email received, and then Dorothy wanted to speak on this as well. So I got an email from Craig Weinhold just last night. I'll just go ahead and read that to the committee. He said, if I understand the new Mccoy and MM plans, I'll actually go ahead and scroll down to the map here because I think that might help make a little more sense of his email here. The Mccoy eastbound right turn lane has stoplights, and then he calls out number 11, which is, I don't know, somewhere down here. Number 11 for road traffic, 6A and 6B for bikes and pedestrians. That's a mistake. It should be a stop sign for road traffic. In Madison, the intersection of North Shore and John Nolan is very similar to the proposed configuration. I can pull that up in case you're not familiar. This one right here. With stoplights, and it's very dangerous. The problem is that 2 signals are required to cross John Nolan, but many path users continue on instead of stopping on the island. Combined with right turn on red violations, the John Nolan North Shore intersection is notorious for accidents and close calls. And then he provided links to 5 different Facebook discussions on the Madison Bikes page where people describe some again, accidents and close call incidents with bikes and vehicles. He continues, the solution for Mccoy and MM is simple and saves money. The right turning car traffic needs only a stop sign, possibly with an additional rec trail crossing or yields to bike sign below it. The trail needs no electronic signaling. I hope this makes sense and you have a chance to discuss it with the Fitchburg Bike Committee during your next meeting. So that's the entirety of Craig's email. Oh, and he even provided a friendly little diagram for us right here. So there's where he'd like to see a stop sign here rather than a signal. And sorry, that kind of has me jumping into his description of the intersection before talking through these details, but I know this was also on the second quarter bike meeting, so we did already talk through this intersection upgrade once already. Dorothy, did you want to go ahead and share as well?
Yeah, I actually initiated a thread in the Madison Bikes group to let them know that there was going to be the construction at that intersection. But what they ended up doing was putting in a lot of comments saying, why do we have to have those significantly sharp for bikers right turns or turns, because there's more than 2. And then they asked about a lot of questions about that slip lane and that right turn off of Mccoy Road onto MM for cars.
Okay.
I hadn't caught Craig's note about changing that right turn to a stop sign, but I think that if it's feasibly possible, might be a good idea. But they would like to get rid of the sharp turns for bikers if that's at all possible. No idea where we are with the drawings and everything, whether that can be considered or not. But
Okay.
that is the feedback that I got out of that group. And
Okay.
the email that I sent has a link to that as well. I sent it to the entire group.
Okay, thank you. And if anyone isn't familiar with this intersection, I'd imagine everyone is, but this is actually flipped 90 degrees counterclockwise right now. So this is north right here on Rimrock Road or County Highway MM. It comes down south. Mccoy Road intersects with it, and right now the Capital City Trail comes alongside after crossing Mccoy a little bit further west. Capital City Trail comes alongside, and then right now it moves up a hill here and crosses kind of mid-block on County Highway MM. So the redoing of this intersection involves adding some stoplights, I believe adjusting. So we've got the left turn lane here to turn onto MM North, and then car traffic would have a separated slip lane here to turn south. The Cap City Trail, rather than crossing mid-block, would actually get some signals here before it continues up the hill. So that does reroute the Cap City Trail to a little bit safer intersection location, but yeah, that this particular the trail crossing this slip lane is the biggest issue in question. I assume, Dorothy, they're talking about this sharp turn to get to MM and then this one to get across the slip lane.
Correct.
Okay. And
The one that was mentioned in particular was that tight of a curve for people with cargo trailers.
oh, sure.
That's going to be an interesting a challenging fix. I again, writing this a couple times a week, I know exactly where you're talking about, but the turn is tight, but it's not real safe the way it is now. So I think we throw this back in their lap and ask them to help us find a better solution for this.
Well, the turn's tight now. There's already 2 tight turns there.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Andy. It's tight now.
Yeah.
They're going the opposite direction now.
Yes.
I'll chat with Bill about whether and how something like that's been taken into consideration. Certainly tight turns in terms of speed shouldn't be an issue because everyone will be slowing down into this intersection anyway. But for cargo trailers, I don't know if we'll just ensure that the path is wide enough to accommodate a little bit wider turns for those cyclists.
Andy, you Burley, is that those 2 tight?
I haul a Burley all the time. I think it's a matter of the speed. We shouldn't be going through there at speed, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, Phil, so you want us to vote on this resolution? Is that what you're looking for us to do here?
Muted. Phil,
You're muted, Phil.
I'm muted. Thanks, Dorothy. This is my mistake. Before we started the discussion, we should have had a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
Yes.
So we need that first.
I would entertain someone to make a motion for this project.
So move.
Joe made the motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Andy. We've already had our discussion. Is there further discussion?
We've had some discussion. So this, I'm trying to remember. Oh no, this isn't what came before the RCC. My mistake. Sorry. Yeah, did everybody have a chance to read through? So there's some budgeting documents here for this project. There's a little bit of description of the project, as well as, are there any questions about the details of this work?
I think my only question really is on that slip lane issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the suggestion of a stop sign would make sense. The other thought I had was we do something similar to, this would be more electronics, but at the intersection of Fish Hatchery and Mckee, where we have the pedestrian activated no right turn light. So if you're trying to cross that intersection at grade, there's a pedestrian activated light that then it's like a large no right turn arrow that comes on, would be my only other thought. Just to give a clear indication someone's trying to cross and that traffic should not be moving through. But I think it's going to have an enforcement issue, just the same as the stop sign is going to have an enforcement issue.
So do we want to add that as a friendly amendment to our motion on the floor, that we have them look at electronic alternative as well, or not? Because that'll impact the budget.
And right now, what we're looking at is a total project cost of just under $1 million. So it's $975,000, the total project cost that I believe is being split. The details were up here. I think 2/3 for the city and 1/3 the county. Oh no, it's reverse. 67% is county.
Right.
And 33% Fitchburg.
If I may, Mark.
Sure.
My question would be, we're looking at suggestions for 2 alternatives. One is to change the right slip sign or slip lane to just a stop sign, which would involve a cost savings if you don't need a set of lights for that. And then the suggestion for adding a right turn signal would be another set of budget numbers. So those would be the two things, the two alternatives to explore.
Yeah, correct. Again, the stop sign I wouldn't think would be a project stopping thing, but the other one certainly is going to have an impact. So if we'll entertain the motion with those two permutations to it, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Phil, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And I'd leave
all
it up to
those
the
in-
traffic engineers to figure out which one's the better alternative.
Right.
I think we can give that as a friendly comment to them. So with all this involved, is there anybody else, no further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. One opposed? Did I hear an opposition? So we get it recorded right. Was there an opposition to the motion?
I said aye. I think it might have been a delay.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Okay, so the motion passes. Phil, you can keep going on.
All right. Next item, this should be pretty brief. Let's get past some of these things. So the next item was bicycling related events in and around Fitchburg. I actually couldn't find any for the upcoming month or two. So if anybody knows of any, definitely let us know, but I'm not. We're just coming up to the end of Cycle September with Love to Ride. So beyond that, I'm not sure if there's anything else in or around Fitchburg coming up.
Angie, you're linked with Bike Fitchburg. You hear anything out of there to add that they're? I'm not hearing
No.
anything like that.
The last meeting was a recap on Ride to the Border.
Okay.
And so I was just at that meeting a week ago and I specifically asked them if there was anything that I should bring back to this committee. And the comment was, yes, get your meetings to be monthly. So
Yeah, we need to, I need to go offline, and I think that's gonna be something we'll look to both Phil and as we plan for next year, Joe as our alder on the committee. We need to, just given what we've done today and the fact we're not gonna get through this meeting, tells me we need to be meeting more frequently too. So
well, we won't get to do anything again until long after the budget's done. So
yeah, and that's what bothers me.
So maybe what we could, maybe we can't do it monthly. Maybe we can do it 6 times a year or instead of quarterly.
I think you can take it back to Bike Fitchburg that as the chair, I'm going to continue to pursue this issue, which I have for the last 2 years with our alder rep on the committee and with Phil. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Angie.
So I guess no other events, so we can go on to the next agenda item, which is.
Hey, just point of information with that,
Sure.
Phil. If Dorothy might know too, if we increase the frequency of meetings, are there any budget implications with that? Does that just mean like a little bit more of Phil's time, or what? Like, can we just do that? I mean, if we want to meet bi-monthly, I don't see an issue with it.
So it's what I've been told in the past, and I do want to limit this just so we can get on with the agenda. This isn't technically an agenda item, but what I've been told in the past is that it's the time and cost for me. It's the time and cost for Fact TV and any support we're receiving there, and then also the whatever the stipend amount is that's set aside for committee members for each meeting. So it's a combination of costs and logistics.
You know, I
For the
appreciate.
record, I'm working for free.
Yeah, me too. And I appreciate your time and effort. And I don't want to downplay what you do, but I'd love to meet more often or have that be possible.
Yeah, and it's a discussion that I have had and am at least trying to keep that door open a crack. the results obviously have not been successful so far, but yeah, the discussions continue.
All right, Angie, I will keep this on my agenda and I'll become a pest about it, okay? All right, keep moving, Phil. We got bike track.
Yep, so the bike track. So item 5D here, the North Fish Hatchery Hub and a potential bike pump track there. Wade, do you want to do a screen share or do you want me to just scroll through slides here for you?
Yeah, I guess first off, can you hear me okay, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll do a screen share if that works for you.
That sounds great. I'll stop mine.
Okay. All right, can everybody see a PowerPoint?
Yep.
Great. Thanks for having me. I believe I know some of you. For those that I don't know, I'm Wade Thompson with the city's planning department. I'm just going to take a few minutes today. I know you're trying to get through your agenda, so I won't take a lot of your time. But yeah, just going to give you kind of an overview of what we call our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. I'll be using the acronym HNI. And then I think more specific of interest to this committee, we'll talk about the North Fish Hatchery Road Neighborhood Hub and one piece of that hub plan, which is a bike pump track. So again, we'll talk big picture and then we'll kind of drill down to a site-specific project that the city's working on. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on our big picture HNI. I think some folks might be aware of our HNI, but essentially it's about really ensuring a few of our northern neighborhoods have equity and access to opportunities and are truly diverse in the people that live there, and also housing stock, land uses, those things as well. And a third piece of a healthy neighborhood is really about stability and sustainability. So I'm not going to get into a lot of this either, but I think there's a lot of reasons that healthy neighborhoods are important. Generally speaking, we're talking positive, productive outcomes as it relates to social outcomes, economic outcomes, and environmental outcomes as well. And then just generally speaking, I think it's been agreed upon by our policymakers that our city does have a role in building and maintaining healthy neighborhoods within our borders. To that end, we did develop a 40-page strategic plan that was adopted about a year and a half ago. And we have specific action items in that plan that helps us, again, move towards those healthy neighborhoods. So when we talk about our healthy neighborhoods, really we're talking 3 neighborhoods in our northern tier. We call them priority neighborhoods. So again, 3 neighborhoods moving west to east. The Verona Road neighborhood, just west of Verona Road. Going across the Verona Road corridor, we've got our Belmar Renaissance on the Park neighborhood, kind of the Allied Drive area that's been traditionally known as Allied Drive. And then moving east, our North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhood as well. And when we talk about kind of stakeholders, it's not just city staff, it's not just me, it's you guys, it's all our city committees, it's nonprofit partners, and it's our residents, again, all working together to really build and maintain those healthy neighborhoods. And I just want to end on the idea that these healthy neighborhoods don't just happen. They require good planning and continued investment. And we'll talk about some of those planning pieces and investment pieces today. So again, when I talk HNI, I kind of break it down into what I call the pieces. So the 3 Ps of people, programs, and places. And we'll talk more today about the places piece of the HNI. And so that kind of brings us to that specific piece of the puzzle here, which is our North Fish Hatchery Road Neighborhood Hub. And again, this is kind of this idea of a neighborhood gathering spot in the North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhood. Just going to breeze through some of this. You know, folks, if you have questions on process and timeline, I can certainly answer those questions. But I think we'll kind of skip through some of this stuff. And when we talk about what the hub is, again, it's this idea of a gathering place that's designed to meet the social and recreational needs of our neighborhood residents and also enhance their quality of life and access to opportunities. We kind of view it as serving a catalyst to assist in stabilizing that neighborhood and that corridor with the goal of spurring new investment and enhancing property values in that neighborhood and in that corridor. And then just, in terms of some specific goals, really we want to create a place that's on, quote unquote, 7 days a week, year round, and provide something for everyone. We also wanted to serve not just the neighborhood, but the broader community. And then the cherry on the top is even the idea of attracting visitors to the site. So again, not going to go through all this, but this just kind of gives you a rough idea of process and timeline. We have been at this over a year, so we are kind of nearing the final stages here. Number 7 and 8 on this slide, again, we're kind of nearing the finish line, but the idea would be to prepare a final deliverable in the next month or so, and then distribute that to appropriate outlets. The hub has been identified for funding for implementation in both our 2021 capital improvement plan budget, which was passed, I believe, in August thereabouts. And then my understanding, it is included in the mayor's draft operating budget. That will be up for debate and ultimately approved by council in November. But again, my understanding is it is in that draft mayoral budget.
So excuse me, Wade, so hadn't it been pushed back? Is it now pushed back to 2021?
To be honest, I haven't seen the budget yet, so I probably don't have a lot of specifics for you, but I can get back to you on that. But I think there is some funding in there to begin. Yeah, 2021, there would be construction funding. And then
Okay.
I think there might not be some operating funds until 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Which, from the staff's
Thank you.
perspective, I think makes sense, because if we're going to spend the majority of 2021 constructing, we probably won't have a whole lot to operate
Okay.
in 2021. So I think big picture that's not an issue from a staff perspective.
Thank you. You've answered my question with it. Thank you.
Sure. So again, the next step, really, once we get some of that budget stuff worked out, is to contract with a consultant to do what I call a phase 2 design. And that's where we get into the very specifics of fleshing out the concept that I will show you in the upcoming slides. Up to that point, again, what we'll talk about next, it is a concept. It isn't a detailed blueprint or floor plan. So there is opportunities to make tweaks as we move towards a final design. So just ultimately there's 3 pieces of the hub plan. I want to talk about 2 quickly today. Some enhanced park space on the north side of Traceway Drive, and then this idea of a full-on neighborhood center type facility on the south side of Traceway Drive. And then just very quickly, when we did develop this concept plan, obviously we engaged with the neighborhood. You know, this facility is for them. So we really wanted to get a sense of what they desired in terms of kind of 3 categories: outdoor amenities, indoor amenities, and then services. And no real surprises here. This is stuff we've heard for years. You know, honestly, that neighborhood's been underserved for a lot of years, and we're hearing that through the engagement process. So again, we think this hub can really start making a dent in providing resources and services in that neighborhood. So moving into the concept itself, if people can follow my cursor. So north side of Traceway Drive, south side of Traceway Drive. To orientate people, this is Traceway Drive. North Fish Hatch Road is just off the screen to the right, running perpendicular to Traceway. The city's golf course is kind of in the foreground here. This white building is that large new senior center housing, just fronting North Fish Hatch. So more specifically on some phasing, again, maybe not of particular interest to this committee, but to Mark's point, we do have the stuff budgeted. We're talking a phase 1, north side of Traceway. Hopefully the next we've got kind of a hard court rec area that could serve not just rec purposes, you know, pickleball, basketball, those sorts of things, but also serve as kind of a gathering space for festivals, events, you know, those types of things. And then again, moving to the right of that, we've got a real nice shelter identified, again, to host neighborhood gatherings. We've got what we call Pedestrian Spine, which we'll see in some future renderings. That kind of connects North Traceway to South Traceway. To the right of that, we've kind of got this flexed area of open green space. It could function as, you know, maybe a yard games area, a picnic area, those sorts of things. And then moving north, the brown area is kind of this really cool, unique playground with a water feature that we think will attract, obviously, neighborhood kids and families. And then kind of, where the rubber hits the road with this committee, I think of particular interest is the idea of a bike pump track, kind of rounding out the north side of the property. And we'll talk more about that. So these are some renderings, kind of giving you, I think, a better image of what I just talked about. So again, we're on Traceway Drive looking north, parking on the left here, moving to the right. This is that hardcore area that again could serve both rec and social needs. Nice shelter for neighborhood gatherings. This is that pedestrian spine that I talked about. So again, kind of a connection from north to south. We have some food carts mocked up on there, so it certainly could serve as an event space as well. And then just in the background, which you can't see very well here, but we'll see in future renderings, is the playground and the pump track. Again, just another view looking from Traceway, kind of an eagle's eye view looking down from Traceway. The pump track is just out of view here in the back. This is looking from the back of the property towards Traceway. And this, I think, is the first really good image that shows the pump track. So again, we are just conceptualizing the track at this point. We aren't getting into specifics of exact length or exact features, but we do have it on the page as a hub puzzle piece, and we're certainly going to work to flesh out the more specific design as we move into the next phase of design. Again, just more images. You can see the pump track here in the background. Again, this is kind of an eagle's eye view looking north from the south side of Traceway. So again, the pump track would be kind of in the back here. And they're not going to get into this, but this is just essentially some management costs issues that staff and some of our commissions will have to flesh through as we move towards implementation. And then just quickly wrapping up, moving to the south side of Traceway, this is our phase 2, kind of a large footprint, quote unquote neighborhood center that you see on the map there. And again, some renderings. So obviously we think the two pieces, the north side and south side will complement each other. I think when we talk about the north side, we're talking more about maybe a rec-based, land use area. When we talk south side, the neighborhood center, we're talking more about maybe a social service, information, kind of resource center where, again, the neighborhood and community can access resources and services. So just additional renderings of the site, some management concepts for that phase 2 community center, some other issues that the city will have to address to move forward with that. And then I think just, again, as it relates to this committee, and I think your interests, talking real specifically about that pump track in the site design, our goal as staff would be to get a consultant on board before the end of the year to begin that phase 2 site design. And I think the thought would be to work with that consultant, with city staff, and also with interested bike partners. And one example is Bike Fitchburg. Maybe have a couple, work group sessions where that group really fleshes out what does that hub pump track look like in terms of size and features. And obviously a lot of that design will be dictated on engagement with the neighborhood. They will tell us what they want, and then we'll try to put that on paper. And then I think where I'll end it here today is obviously, this committee is focused with advancing biking in Fitchburg. So if there is interest from 1 or 2 committee members in serving on that work group, we would love to have you. Again, I envision myself, our parks director, potentially Phil, if he's interested, some Bike Fitchburg people, our consultant, and then again, if there's committee interest as well. So with that, I am done and can certainly take any questions or comments that the committee might have.
All right. Wade, thank you very much for that presentation, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to kick this question comment portion off. 2 things. I saw some emails or some chat comments bounce up from Dorothy and Joe. I think the thing has been pushed back to 2022. Is that correct, Alders? The track
So
itself.
I gotta get to my computer, but I know part of the hub was pushed back to 2022, and then part of it was included in the 2021 budget. If somebody could just find the link to it, like right in the beginning of the budget, there's a list of everything the mayor omitted. He also took the teen center out too. So, I mean, I'm gonna be coordinating with Alder Radafrada and kind of seeing what her thoughts are on both of those omissions, since we were both co-sponsors in the capital improvement plan, and sort of figure out like what our plan of action is, whether we want to make amendments or not.
So I guess let's find out where it fits. And the second comment I wrote down was another one Dorothy raised, was the connection to the Cap City Trail. And I'm certain, given that my kids went to school over there and I know that area pretty well, where the pump track's going to sit, there's a sidewalk and there's a street, but I haven't heard anything about it. I'm looking at you, Wade, a connection to a direct connection. It wouldn't be the Cap City Trail. It would be the Cannonball Path.
Yeah, I know that issue has been brought up, and certainly, I think we envision maybe this hub track or the pump track is part of a broader regional complex of bike related. Madison's actually working on a pump track in one of their parks. Obviously, we've got a lot of good mountain biking nearby, so it could almost be a progression of, starting from elementary school to middle school to teenagers, to have all these sorts of varying levels of kind of off-road biking infrastructure. So yeah, I think trying to figure out ways to connect those pieces makes a lot of sense. We are limited a little bit in our study area. If we're talking about, I'm not exactly sure of how the trail plays out as it relates to the hub study area. But yeah, we can.
It goes right past. It's right to the west of Leopold. It literally runs along that parking lot and playground. So I think Dorothy raises a good point, and I think you need to put that in your follow-up list, or what I always call the parking lot, so to speak.
Yeah, that might require some discussions about easements or those sorts of things. But yeah, that's certainly something we'll put in the hopper.
All right, I want to try and wrap this up. Dorothy, you've got a comment about the budget summary?
Yeah, I've got it in front of me. What it says is the operating impact of some CIP projects were also changed. While these are not required to be listed specifically, he felt it important to mention. Related to CIP 6272, the neighborhood hub, the operating impact of the neighborhood hub was removed for 2021. Park development will take time, and the final design of the project will determine the level of operating costs that are needed. The funding to build out the infrastructure of the park remains in this budget.
Okay, and that's what I had heard. So frankly, Wade, I think that makes sense given where this is, because this isn't something you open up a basketball court and it gets used. We got to figure out who's going to run it, how it's going to be run, and I do know that Wade is going to be talking to Bike Fitchburg, see if they can offer some help or find somebody who's done this in other cities.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Mark, just wrapping up, I think when we talk about management of the hub, we're talking about all the pieces. I think what might work really well in that neighborhood, and at least initially, is having some sort of city presence there for, a lot of the hours that the hub is open. The pump track specifically, I don't think we envision like a need to have someone there, 9 to 5 days a week sitting at the track. I think it could serve as a piece of the broader hub management. Certainly if there's groups that have interest in, maybe a weekend event or, those sorts of things, I think, that's an aspect, but I don't think we envision like a, high level of management required or resources required to keep this pump track maintained and managed, throughout the future. So.
Okay, well, I think more to come on this, and would you keep us advised? Are there anybody that wishes to serve with Wade on this working group he's putting together? Any volunteers?
And certainly, I don't need an answer now. If the committee wants to talk at their next meeting and figure out, you know, if you have an interest in doing that, that works for me. And I, you know, obviously I can communicate with Phil. I think
Yeah,
our
or
work.
if you wanna email me separately, I'll definitely be in touch with Wade still.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause I don't think our work group will probably get going until, you know, November at the earliest. So we've got some time here.
Well, Wade, I support this project in general. I think it's gonna be good for our city. I think we have other neighborhood hubs we have to consider in the long run. You heard Joe mention that one. In the spirit of trying to get through the rest of the agenda, if there's no more questions for Wade, we will move to the update on the bike committee work goal status. Is that okay, Phil?
Yeah, yep.
All right, I'm gonna,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Wade. I'm gonna do this in about 3 minutes. We've got what I'm gonna call 4 working parts talking about gold right now. One is we're looking at our ridership, and we need to get a handle on, particularly given the discussion today, how many people are riding around Fitchburg, how many are riding through, and how many in our community are using bicycles. I think it's significantly up, and we're certainly working on that. There we go. So we need to work on that. We're looking at our barriers to bicycling. We're looking at infrastructure and our education and advocacy. And all these things are gonna, we think, help us get to gold. If you look up earlier, Angela Kinderman is working with us to develop a survey on our biking for our businesses and who's riding bikes and who's not and how we can help. So we've talked to the Bike League in collaboration with Bike Fitchburg, working together, and the city and this committee to move us to gold, and the chamber. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. You've got the info in your packet, and we have Andy Potts is engaged with this group, with myself and Phil. Former Mayor Steve Arnold is engaged. Former Alder Tony Hartman. Joe Maldonado is on our group as well. He joined after the first meeting we had, but we've got we've got a small number of us that are trying to I guess move this to gold, applying sometime in 22 or early 23. So the only thing that's taken a back seat is education and advocacy, and we've reached out to the Bike League. We're also going to reach out to folks in Fitchburg about more education and what's wanted and what's needed. So I'm going to stop there. Phil, we've had a lot of talks on this. You want to add anything else there?
I don't think so. I think that's a pretty good high level overview. I know that the committee has talked about the bike friendly community work. You know, all of the last 3 meetings we've talked about pushing to silver and then trying to get ourselves lifted up to gold as well. The big thing is just, you know, kind of as Mark mentioned, trying to figure out what need to be the top priorities. And then who's going to be responsible for those and what role the bike committee is going to play. You know, there are some things like education and advocacy are going to fall more under the Bike Fitchburg umbrella. But when we get into anything like, you know, we're going to discuss shortly the bike registration ordinance with Officer Hartwick. If we think that there are any sort of policy barriers to biking or infrastructural or structural barriers to cycling, those are things where the bike committee is going to need to come in and excuse me, just sort of trying to talk about what role the committee is going to play in that and how we can have the committee involved and helping to push us forward. Obviously for this topic as a bike friendly community moving from silver to gold, but even just you know, on a higher level in terms of the committee's mission, making Fitchburg a better community for cycling at all levels.
So questions from the group?
This may be a pretty minor question, but I was wondering about that survey on ridership. I think I noticed the categories are like 0 to 10% in terms of folks who are biking to work. Is that correct?
Yeah,
When you
I
say
think
zero, go ahead,
the
Phil.
initial draft of the survey was 0 to 10%, 10 to 25, and 25 to 50, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a recommendation, I guess, is that it could be nice to make the categories a little more narrow. I'm anticipating like a lot of people would say 0 to 10, and then we wouldn't really know like 10% of people regularly bike commuting, that's quite high.
Right.
And we wouldn't want to lump those in with zero, right? Just in terms of getting the most accurate data.
Okay, well, we can
Yeah,
certainly make that Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. It's sort of I threw those groupings together. Stopped at 50% because I figured very few places. If they want to say 50 or above, that would be fantastic, but I think that's unlikely. I guess my thought was there are going to be enough places that they have few enough employees that the difference between 5% and 10% is maybe not even something that they can necessarily calculate. I don't know. I was trying to think about something that's a wide enough gap for them to feel like they understand the distinction between them. Because I think you'll get a lot of places that they say, oh, none of our employees ride, and then a handful that say 10 or 25% ride. And I don't know that there will be a lot where one person on a staff of 50, but maybe it's, yeah. So another option was just leaving that field blank and saying how many of your employees, either by number or by percentage. Maybe that would be a better way to get at that, and then we still can capture the small differences like you mentioned.
I think raw number of employees would be good. I sometimes if you ask people to do, arithmetic on a survey, sometimes you end up with crazy answers. But I think you can.
So maybe how many employees do you have, and how many of them bike to work on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think that could work. You may also define like during good weather or something like that. Like, what does a regular basis mean?
We can ask that. The other thing, Ellie, we are asking in the survey, how many employees do you have? So that will allow us to back into what you're saying about the ridership. So, but yeah, we could divide it into during warmer months and during colder months. Right. How many ride to work, and split it up by employees and by customers. Yeah, I think that would get us definitely more refined data. And this is something where, because this is already a subset of the businesses in Fitchburg, because at this point, I think we're just planning to send this out to chamber members. Right. I don't know that we're sending it to the whole business community. So it's already a subset of the businesses. We're not going to use this survey to say, hey, we know that this percent of people in Fitchburg bike. It just kind of, it gives us a little bit of a ballpark estimate.
Gotcha.
I mean, I think, again, the reason we narrowed on this is the bike league. This was the one deficiency they said in our application, that if you look at Madison, I think, Phil, were they around 5%? Was that right?
Madison was about 3.5%, I believe.
3.5. Okay, so
yeah.
But we're 0.76%. So we've got it's ACS data. So we're trying to use this to get more information. We're also trying to stimulate some interest from our business community about cycling, whether it be for their employees or their customers. So I'm hoping we can use this as a jumping or stepping stone to get to the next level where we need to go. So it's not the know all end all, but I think, Ellie, your comments are Angela Kinderman's helping write this for us. And your comments are very appropriate.
No, Mark, you were right. Madison's 4.78.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
To our 0.76, yeah.
So this is going to be important. Everybody we've talked to, I think it also, are there any further questions about the goal journey? You've gotten all the data we've been working on. I want to thank Phil for his help on this, by the way. Okay, well, Phil, let's move to our next agenda item, which also came from our bike survey.
Sure.
And is Lieutenant Hardwick on the line?
I am. I'm here.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you, Mark?
When was the last time you rode your bike?
Too long ago, with the way 2020 is going.
Thank you. Okay, I'll turn this over to Phil and to Ned about going over about our bicycle registration ordinance. This may require some explanation. We discussed this probably at the committee a year ago when we got our bike report. So it's all yours.
Sure. So I'll give a really quick overview and then let Lieutenant Hardwick speak. So one of the and you got some notes on this in the packet as well, so I won't belabor the point too much, but one of the areas that was identified, the Bike League really pushes on cities to identify places where there are policy barriers to riding. One of the things that the Bike League feels tends to be unnecessary and even maybe an impediment to new people biking is having an ordinance that requires bike registrations. One, because it just feels like a structural barrier. Two, because the cost of a bike registration can be limiting for some lower income riders. So this is something that we looked into. I spoke with Ned on the phone a few weeks ago. What Fitchburg has right now is an ordinance that calls for all bikes to be registered with the city, that registration stickers be displayed prominently on bikes, and that an unregistered bike may not be operated in Fitchburg. My understanding is that the police department brings in a grand total of around $70 a year from those bike registration fees. It's $10 per bike. And the ordinance, at least has not been enforced in working memory. So in terms of being a barrier to people getting out of their bikes, it's at least not something that people are being ticketed on. And I guess just as kind of a high level context there, and then if Lieutenant Harwick, you wanted to speak on that as well.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I can share my screen here or not, but just wanted to provide a little bit more context, I guess, to the numbers when you talk about it is a $5 registration fee, lifetime, and just to kind of give you, I included the language for the ordinance, which you already have here, but just to give you the actual numbers for the number of registrations here, I mean, we're looking at very few registrations over the last several years. And I can recall probably one or two instances where registration has been helpful in reuniting an owner of a bike with a stolen or found bike. And that's obviously one of the main intents of this. However, with these numbers, you can see that it's not a very well-used program. Additionally, there are some issues with updating information, tracking changes. We have a lot of individuals who live in apartments and who may live in Fitchburg for a short period of time and may move from one side of the city to another. So tracking that information, those updates, is a challenge with the registrations that we do have. Phil, if you want me to continue on here, I can just cover a few more quick points.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I identified a couple of issues here, and the ordinance does indicate that it can be registered in another municipality. The issue that we run into there is how do we check that information if we recover a bike, say that's registered in Madison? How easy is that for our personnel to check that information? The biggest thing that we run into is that bike owners don't know their serial numbers, and that really is the biggest issue that we see overall in reuniting found or stolen bikes. And fortunately, stolen bikes are not a very prevalent issue in the city. We usually average, I want to say, between 5 and 10 stolen bikes a year. This year, we've had an uptick. And I think we're looking at about 20 stolen bikes for the year. But obviously, if you have a bike stolen, that can impact you in a number of ways. And that's something that we don't want to see happen. And when we do find those bikes, we like to reunite them with their owners. If people do have their serial numbers available, we can enter that into a national database to check and see. And if a law enforcement agency in Chicago or Los Angeles even were to find that bike, they could reunite it with the owner in Fitchburg. So I think there was some discussion on other options that are out there. And I have seen other law enforcement agencies interact with those organizations and websites or registries quite efficiently. So I identified a couple of those on there. The other point that I'd bring up too is that the abandoned bikes or found bikes do have an impact on our operations. Since 2015, we've had about 85 bikes that were had to be dispositioned, either taken to auction or salvaged. And right now we have about 20 bikes that are in our evidence facility that are unable to be reunited with their owner. So it's a component of our operations, as Phil indicated. It's not something that we enforce. It's not something that we are looking to enforce. We have no random checks. So from one perspective, you could say that there isn't a major barrier in the sense that it's obviously not even a very well-known program, and we're not out there actively enforcing it. That's all I really have.
So I think, yeah, thanks so much. We spoke about one other thing, is that it seems like the larger purpose then of having bikes registered is about recovering lost or stolen bikes, and that's something that there are other programs like Bike Index and Bike Guard that can do something similar. And so we spoke about that a little bit, but given that a lot of the bikes that are recovered were bought from large box stores, it's my understanding is it's a little bit more difficult to engage those stores at getting those purchased bikes registered with any program, whether it's the city's registration program or something like Bike Index. So I guess the question is, do we feel like the city's current registration ordinance is a hindrance in any way? And if so, do we feel like there's another option that would still serve the purpose of protecting people's purchases while not feeling like a barrier to them in any way? And I guess I'm not sure what that might look like, but curious if anybody has any additional thoughts.
Yeah. Phil, I'd offer two comments. One is, we talked at one time, do we remove the $5 fee? Looking at the police department budget, I know is tight, but looking at they've received $20 so far in 2020 for fees. Do we need to remove that? And I know our alders need to get engaged with that. Second of all, do we make it an education point that if you register your bike, here's what you get if it does get stolen or walk away? I think we can help ourselves that way, but simplifying it, the lady at the bike league said, just remove the fee and make it, and then educate people. You've got a Bike Fitchburg shop over here who they sell a bike, they could certainly bring it up. But I think you're right, getting the big box stores isn't going to happen. But I think we go at this a little bit at a time, and if we show the bike league, we've eased the process. If our officer colleagues in the police department don't mind that, let's see what we can do to do that. That's my 2 cents on it. The other thing, Ned, if you've got some bikes sitting in a warehouse facility, evidence, there is a Bike for Kids program in Madison that several Fitchburg businesses are participating in. They take those bikes and fix them up. I don't know how you guys can do that via the city. That may be something to do with those extra bikes.
Yeah, and for just a little bit of an update too, the council had modified the ordinance to allow for that to happen. And I don't have all the particulars on that, but with that batch of bikes that we had last year, they ran into some additional, I guess, issues or concerns that I'm not exactly up to speed on as far as making those donations. But yeah, that was a desire of us to look to kind of get a better use of those bikes. So that's something that would probably still be on the table, is examining that.
Okay.
I like the idea of.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I like the idea of improving education because, quite frankly, I'm somebody who does license my bikes, because when I was a kid and the police car pulled into my driveway with my beloved bike in the back of it because I had it licensed and I got my bike back. A lot of people don't realize that that's really the greatest feeling that I can remember, you know? And so it would be really advantageous, I think, you know, people are buying bike locks. Is there signs that could be put at bike stores or something like that saying, hey, you know, license your bike and this is why? You know, if this is not the city trying to make money on licenses, this is actually a service that's provided to all of us, which is really great, in my opinion.
So Ned, you said that I don't remember if you called this out today, but when we spoke, you said that right now the bike registrations are just tracked on an Excel spreadsheet. Is that right?
We have them in our records management system, so we'd be able to
Okay.
look up if you were to call and give us your last name, we'd be able to look up if you had a bike registered to you. If you couldn't say remember the information that you provided at that time, we do track them on a separate spreadsheet as well, but we do have them in our records management system.
Do you have any guess at how much time is spent on the bike registration database every year?
I would say it's minimal. I mean, in contrast to the other duties that we have, it's a few minutes.
Not a headache that it's like, oh, we'd love to get this off of our plate.
No, I mean, I would, that is the only really license that we take care of, and the clerk's office typically takes care of other licensing issues, so that might be a consideration. It would be nice for us to have access to some of that data if we're to find a bike after hours, but as far as the intake, that could be a potential.
I think this could be, if we could work together, this could be an easy fix for us. I think education, I think the bike index, I mean, my bikes are registered, and frankly, until Lieutenant Hardwick told me that was an option, I hadn't registered my bikes, and I've lived here 30 years. So, I mean, again, nobody knows about it. And I think that this is an easy one as we look at our goal journey to give something to our community. Particularly, you look at Angie's story. The officer brought it back to her driveway, and as more people ride, and as more people are dealing with this pandemic, and bikes, people start riding to places, it's going to happen unless they're locking them up.
So I've got to jump off here, but I think the one thing I wanted to say is whatever we do, we should try to coordinate with our neighbors. Because I think the comment that if people are moving between communities, to the extent we can work with Madison and Verona and our neighboring communities to whatever we settle on is our preferred method of registration. If we could see if we can try to get them on the same system so that we can all have the access to the same data.
And this spring, I know that, and yeah, if you have to jump off, thanks for joining, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
I just saw this spring Madison was considering switching their bike registration ordinance to a fee-free, but I believe because they have a lot of riders and quite a few more residents than we do. I believe it is something like $5,000 or $10,000 a year that Madison spends in terms of just the costs of printing out registrations to give to people and maintaining their database. So it would be an interesting conversation to have with Madison about what they're looking at. I'm not sure if they switched to fee-free. I think that for them, the registration fee is a little bit more substantial and helpful to cover those costs. But I can certainly reach out to Renee Calloway and ask what ended up happening with that resolution. All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Just gonna hop off too.
We're getting to the end of our agenda. Why don't I think we got some more work to do with this, Ned?
Yeah, I guess in terms of that, do we, in terms of action items there, I can reach out to Madison, I can reach out to Verona and Middleton and see what they're doing about bike registrations. Do we want to, for the next meeting, like, should I craft a resolution to try and alter that ordinance so that it's no cost registration, or do we not want to take that step yet? I'm not sure.
I think we need to alter it. The Bike League suggested that. I think as long as our police colleagues are on the same page with us, it would be the right thing to do. Let's take these, what I'm calling low-hanging fruits. I like the idea of syncing the databases. And I think that let's go ahead and get that moving forward. How do the rest of you feel that are still on? Ellie and Angie, does that make sense?
I'm good with something that's not, I don't want it to be a major hassle for the police department too. I want it to be a workable situation. I'd like to encourage people to get licenses, and if they're free, wow, that'd be amazing, but.
Well, that's the education piece. I think that doesn't cost us anything.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I think it's a real equity thing, right, to not have a fee. Even if it seems small to us, it's not small for some people, right, to have to pay $5. So I think waiving that would be amazing, especially if the police department isn't bringing much in anyway.
Ned, that discussion point sound okay to you?
Yeah, I think I can work with Phil. I've seen a few other ideas that are out there, and we can kind of look at a few other options that are out there and think about how increasing that may impact our workload. But I think it's something that we can come up with a solution on.
Okay.
All right, so I'll put this back on the fourth quarter agenda, and I'll just have a follow-up item on how we want to proceed with this bike registration ordinance.
Sounds good.
But I believe with Joe leaving, we're technically at 3 of our 6 members. So we probably should close out the meeting anyway.
All right. Before we close it, I want to thank everybody again. I think we're doing some good work. I think that Ned, thank you for joining us today. I know you're busy. We want to make this a good, biking is a big part of our city. We want to make it safe and do things right. Phil, do you have anything else to add under your state staff report? I mean,
yeah, I can do just a really quick thing, because the free bikes for kids was mentioned. I saw the numbers that this spring Free Bikes for Kids gave away over 1,000 bikes to 33 different nonprofit schools and churches. So it's really cool that that they had that impact, and they already got a good start this year with Bike Week. That Race Day Events and Delta both collected bikes, as well as several other locations in the area. So they're making a push to have over 2,000 bikes given away next year. And I think anything else can hold off until the fourth quarter meeting.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Since I can't take a motion, I will let everybody know, wave goodbye, and we will see you soon. As your chair, I will be following up with Phil, and we'll keep you advised as things move forward. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great day. And get it, Angie. I got to go ride. I'm almost to get to my goal for the month. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Have a good ride.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.